Listen carefully, because this is not a message of chance, luck, or wishful thinking. This is a declaration of alignment. This is a moment of awakening. Right now, as you hear these words, something is shifting in the unseen realm. Forces that once resisted you are being rearranged. Barriers that stood tall in front of your progress are weakening. What you thought would take decades is about to be accelerated. What once felt impossible is preparing to cooperate with your obedience, your discipline, and your courage. You are not entering 2026 the same way you entered previous years. You are stepping into a season where financial mountains respond to your authority. There are seasons when effort alone is not enough, and there are seasons when strategy meets supernatural momentum. This is that season. Financial mountains move when mindset, timing, and action converge. You are no longer begging systems to favor you. You are positioning yourself so systems must respond. Scarcity is being replaced with structure. Confusion is being replaced with clarity. Delay is being replaced with decisive movement. The first mountain that is moving is the mountain of limitation. You have been boxed in by what you were taught to believe was possible. Income ceilings, inherited mindsets, generational patterns of struggle, these are breaking. Your capacity is expanding. You are thinking bigger, planning wiser, and acting bolder. When limitation moves, vision increases, and when vision increases, provision follows. The second mountain is the mountain of debt and financial pressure. Obligations that drained your peace are being confronted with discipline and strategy. You are learning to manage, not just earn. You are mastering stewardship, not impulse. Pressure loses its power when you gain control, and control begins with intentional decisions made daily. The third mountain is the mountain of fear. Fear of risk, fear of failure, fear of success. This fear has quietly sabotaged opportunities, but courage is rising. You are no longer waiting to feel ready. You are moving because readiness is created through action. Confidence grows when you honor small steps consistently. The fourth mountain is the mountain of delay. Things that should have moved faster stalled because timing was off. Now alignment is happening. Connections are becoming precise. Opportunities are becoming relevant. What was delayed is not denied. It was being prepared to arrive with greater impact. The fifth mountain is the mountain of lack of knowledge. You are gaining access to information, mentorship, and wisdom. You are no longer guessing, you are learning. And when knowledge increases, costly mistakes decrease. The sixth mountain is the mountain of inconsistency. Discipline is replacing emotion. Structure is replacing chaos. You are building habits that compound over time. Small, focused actions are creating unstoppable momentum. The seventh mountain is the mountain of self-doubt. You are recognizing your value, your skill, and your authority to create wealth ethically and responsibly. You are no longer waiting for permission. You understand that confidence is a responsibility, not an ego. Now hear this clearly. Mountains do not move for observers. They move for participants. This moment demands action. Review your finances. Strengthen your skills. Align your goals. Speak with conviction. Act with discipline. Decide today that you will not drift into 2026. You will advance with intention, strategy, and courage. Stand up. Take responsibility for your future and move forward now. This message declares that a distinct season of acceleration has begun, one where effort alone is no longer carrying the full weight of progress. Instead, alignment is taking place at multiple levels, mental, strategic, and practical, so that movement happens with greater speed and less resistance. What once felt slow, blocked, or constantly delayed is now encountering a shift in timing. This is not about rushing or forcing outcomes. It is about being positioned correctly so that forward motion becomes natural and sustained. Acceleration happens when clarity replaces confusion and when intentional decisions meet the right moment. The speech emphasizes that this season is marked by convergence. Skills you have developed quietly, lessons learned through struggle, and discipline built in obscurity are now meeting opportunities that can carry them forward. In previous seasons, progress may have required excessive effort for minimal return, creating exhaustion and frustration. In this new phase, the return on focused action increases. One wise move produces multiplied results. One disciplined habit begins to compound. Momentum builds not because circumstances are perfect, but because alignment is present. Another critical element of this acceleration is timing. Delays were not wasted time. They were preparation periods. While it appeared that nothing was happening, internal restructuring was taking place. Mindsets were being refined, priorities were being reordered, and resilience was being strengthened. Now timing is cooperating. Doors are opening that match your current capacity, not your former limitations. Opportunities are becoming relevant, not distracting. Acceleration does not mean doing more things. It means doing the right things with precision. The speech also highlights that acceleration demands awareness. This season requires attentiveness to shifts, patterns, and signals that indicate movement. Hesitation can cause missed moments, while decisiveness activates flow. Being mentally present and strategically alert allows you to recognize when to act, when to adjust, and when to advance. Acceleration favors those who are prepared to respond, not those waiting for perfect conditions. Financial acceleration is further linked to responsibility. Increased speed without structure leads to instability. So this season emphasizes alignment over impulse. Decisions are made with intention. Resources are directed with purpose. Growth is managed, not chased. When structure supports movement, acceleration becomes sustainable rather than temporary. Finally, this season reframes struggle. Resistance is no longer interpreted as failure, but as information. Adjustments are made quickly, lessons are applied immediately, and forward motion continues without emotional paralysis. Acceleration does not eliminate challenges, it reduces recovery time. You regain momentum faster, think clearer under pressure, and move forward without carrying the weight of past delays into present decisions. This part of the message focuses on the dismantling of mental and generational limitations that have silently shaped financial outcomes for years. Many barriers were never external. They were internal agreements made with fear, tradition, or past experience. Beliefs formed through upbringing, environment, and repeated exposure to lack established invisible ceilings that dictated what felt realistic. The speech challenges these ceilings by exposing them as learned constraints rather than fixed truths. Once these internal boundaries are identified, they begin to lose authority. Generational patterns are addressed as cycles that persist only when they remain unquestioned. Struggle passed down through observation becomes normalized, creating an unconscious loyalty to limitation. The message emphasizes that honoring where you came from does not require repeating its restrictions. Breaking these patterns demands awareness, not rebellion. It requires recognizing that inherited mindsets may explain current conditions, but do not have the power to define future outcomes. When perspective shifts, the grip of generational scarcity weakens. The expansion of vision is central to this transformation. Financial growth is directly connected to how one perceives possibility. When thinking remains narrow, opportunities appear rare. When thinking expands, opportunities multiply. The speech reinforces that vision must stretch beyond survival into sustainability, beyond maintenance into growth. This expanded vision reshapes goals, alters decisions, and changes how time and resources are valued. As vision increases, so does the willingness to prepare for larger outcomes. Another key element is the rejection of false humility. Many limitations are disguised as modesty, caution, or realism. The message confronts the idea that desiring more automatically signals greed or pride. Instead, it reframes expansion as responsibility. Increased capacity allows for greater impact, improved stability, and the ability to build rather than merely endure. When this mindset takes hold, guilt associated with growth dissolves, making room for confident planning and bold execution. The speech also highlights the importance of identity. People often act in alignment with who they believe they are, not who they could become. If identity is rooted in lack, decisions will unconsciously protect that narrative. Shifting identity requires redefining self-perception. From someone who struggles to someone who builds, manages, and multiplies. This internal shift precedes external change. Behavior adjusts naturally once identity evolves. Breaking limitation further involves language. Words reinforce beliefs, and repeated negative declarations strengthen internal barriers. The message encourages intentional speech that aligns with expansion rather than restriction. Language becomes a tool for reinforcement, shaping expectations and influencing action. As inner dialogue changes, confidence grows, risk tolerance increases, and the capacity to sustain financial growth strengthens from the inside out. This point emphasizes that true financial progress is sustained not by income alone, but by control, structure, and intentional stewardship. Many people focus exclusively on earning more while neglecting the systems required to manage what they already have. The speech reframes financial pressure as a signal, not a sentence. Pressure exposes weak systems, emotional decision-making, and the absence of clear priorities. When structure is introduced, pressure begins to lose its dominance, and stability replaces anxiety. Stewardship is presented as an active discipline rather than a passive concept. It involves awareness of where resources go, why decisions are made, and how habits shape outcomes over time. The message highlights that money responds to order. Without tracking, planning, and accountability, finances remain reactive. With stewardship, finances become strategic. Every decision carries intention, and every expense aligns with long-term objectives rather than short-term emotion. Discipline is described as the bridge between desire and reality. Without discipline, good intentions dissolve under pressure. The speech stresses that discipline is not restriction, but protection. It safeguards progress from impulse and fatigue. Simple actions such as budgeting, prioritizing obligations, and delaying unnecessary gratification become powerful tools for reclaiming control. These practices do not limit freedom. They create it by reducing dependence on crisis-driven choices. The message also addresses the emotional side of financial management. Many financial setbacks stem from emotional spending, avoidance, or fear-based decisions. Stewardship requires emotional regulation, the ability to pause, assess, and choose wisely even under stress. As emotional awareness increases, reactive patterns decrease. This emotional maturity strengthens consistency and builds confidence in one's ability to manage growth. Another important aspect is responsibility. Financial stability increases when individuals take ownership without blame. The speech encourages honest evaluation rather than denial or comparison. Progress begins when responsibility is embraced without shame. Ownership empowers adjustment, while excuses reinforce stagnation. This mindset shift transforms challenges into opportunities for refinement and improvement. Control is also linked to preparation. Emergencies cause less disruption when margins exist. Stewardship creates buffers, reserves, and flexibility. These buffers reduce vulnerability and increase decision-making power. When finances are managed with foresight, choices expand, stress decreases, and long-term planning becomes realistic. Finally, the speech connects stewardship to trust. When systems are consistent and discipline is practiced, confidence grows, not only in resources, but in oneself. This self-trust fuels bolder, wiser decisions and prepares the individual to handle increased responsibility as financial capacity expands. This part of the message centers on the transformation that occurs when courage replaces fear and delay loses its authority. Fear is revealed as one of the most subtle yet powerful financial barriers because it rarely appears dramatic. It shows up as overthinking, hesitation, perfectionism, and waiting for conditions to feel safer. The speech exposes how fear disguises itself as wisdom while quietly preventing forward movement. Opportunities are missed, not because they were unavailable, but because fear delayed the decision to act. Fear of failure has kept many from starting, while fear of success has kept others from scaling. Success introduces responsibility, visibility, and accountability, and these realities can feel intimidating. The message confronts this internal resistance by reframing fear as a signal rather than a stop sign. Fear indicates growth territory. Whenever fear surfaces, it confirms that expansion is near, not that danger is present. Courage does not eliminate fear. It overrides it through decisive action. Delay is addressed as a habit, not a circumstance. Many delays are self-imposed, rooted in the belief that more time will produce more confidence. The speech challenges this belief by emphasizing that confidence is a byproduct of movement, not waiting. Delayed decisions drain momentum and increase doubt, while timely action builds clarity. Even imperfect movement generates feedback, learning, and direction, which hesitation never provides. The message also highlights the importance of timing and alignment. Past delays were not failures, but indicators that conditions were not fully aligned. However, remaining in delay once alignment appears creates stagnation. This season demands responsiveness. Opportunities now arrive with relevance and precision, matching current skills and capacity. Recognizing this requires awareness and readiness to move without needing every detail resolved in advance. Courage is further described as consistency under uncertainty. It is the ability to keep showing up, making decisions, and adjusting without emotional retreat. Financial growth often requires repeated action before visible results appear. The speech emphasizes endurance, the willingness to stay engaged even when progress feels slow or resistance appears. Courage sustains momentum during these moments. Another key element is the release of comparison. Delay is often fueled by observing others and measuring personal progress against external timelines. This comparison creates pressure, discouragement, and paralysis. The message redirects focus inward, reinforcing that individual timing and capacity differ. Movement becomes easier when comparison is replaced with self-awareness and personal accountability. Finally, courage is linked to ownership. Taking responsibility for decisions eliminates the need for external validation. When approval is no longer required, action accelerates. Fear weakens as self-trust strengthens. Decisions are made with clarity. Adjustments are embraced without shame, and momentum becomes self-sustaining as forward movement replaces hesitation and purposeful action overrides delay. This section emphasizes that financial elevation is closely connected to knowledge, consistency, and the deliberate development of skill. Ignorance is presented not as a lack of intelligence, but as a lack of exposure and access. Many financial struggles persist because individuals repeat patterns they were never taught to question. The speech highlights that once accurate information becomes available, responsibility increases. You begin to see options that were previously invisible, and with that awareness comes the ability to make wiser, more calculated decisions. Knowledge is described as a stabilizing force. When understanding increases, emotional reactions decrease. Decisions are no longer driven by panic, trends, or assumptions, but by insight and foresight. The message reinforces that learning creates confidence and confidence reduces costly mistakes. Exposure to mentorship, instruction, and proven frameworks shortens learning curves and prevents repeated errors. Instead of learning through loss, growth begins to occur through wisdom. Consistency is positioned as the true multiplier of knowledge. Information without application produces no results. The speech underscores that small, repeated actions carry more power than occasional intense effort. Financial progress accelerates when systems are practiced daily, even when motivation fluctuates. Consistency removes reliance on emotion and replaces it with structure. When actions become habitual, progress becomes predictable. Skill development is highlighted as a long-term asset that cannot be taken away. Skills increase earning potential, problem-solving ability, and adaptability. The message points out that income tied only to time or effort remains fragile, while income connected to skill becomes scalable. Developing competence in communication, management, strategy, or execution strengthens one's position in any environment. Skills create leverage, and leverage creates opportunity. The speech also addresses patience in the learning process. Mastery does not happen instantly, and frustration often causes people to abandon growth prematurely. Learning requires humility, repetition, and correction. Mistakes are reframed as feedback rather than failure. Each adjustment refines judgment and sharpens discernment. Over time, accumulated learning compounds into wisdom that guides decisions with clarity. Another key focus is intentional exposure. Growth accelerates when individuals place themselves in environments that challenge their current thinking. Staying confined to familiar spaces limits perspective. The message encourages seeking conversations, resources, and instruction that stretch understanding. Exposure reshapes expectations and redefines what feels achievable. Consistency also builds trust, both internal and external. When actions align with commitments, self-trust increases. Others begin to recognize reliability, opening doors for collaboration and opportunity. This reliability becomes a distinguishing factor in financial advancement. The speech further reinforces that discipline in learning protects against deception and distraction. Informed individuals are less likely to chase shortcuts or fall for unsustainable promises. Knowledge provides discernment, and discernment preserves progress. As skills sharpen and consistency deepens, confidence grows steadily, creating momentum that continues to build through repeated application and intentional learning. This final point centers on personal authority and the responsibility required for lasting financial advancement. The speech makes it clear that progress begins the moment responsibility is accepted without excuses, blame, or dependency on external validation. Authority is not granted by circumstances. It is exercised through decision-making. When individuals recognize that their future responds to their choices, passivity loses its grip. Waiting for rescue, permission, or perfect conditions is replaced with ownership and initiative. Personal authority is closely tied to self-perception. Many people underestimate the influence they have over their outcomes because they have learned to see themselves as responders rather than creators. The message challenges this mindset by reinforcing that authority grows with accountability. Every choice, whether intentional or careless, carries consequences. Recognizing this truth restores power. Instead of reacting to financial pressure, individuals begin directing their actions toward desired outcomes. Responsibility is also framed as freedom rather than burden. Avoiding responsibility often feels easier in the moment, but it leads to limitation and frustration over time. Embracing responsibility creates options. It allows for correction, adjustment, and growth. The speech emphasizes that ownership invites clarity. When responsibility is accepted, confusion decreases because excuses no longer cloud judgment. Focus sharpens, priorities align, and effort becomes more effective. Another aspect highlighted is intentional living. Authority requires direction. Drifting through financial decisions leads to inconsistent results, while intentional planning creates momentum. The message reinforces that clarity of purpose strengthens discipline. When goals are clearly defined, distractions lose their appeal. Actions become aligned with long-term vision rather than short-term relief. The speech also addresses commitment. Financial advancement demands consistency even when motivation fades. Authority is demonstrated through follow-through. Keeping commitments to oneself builds internal trust. Each fulfilled commitment strengthens confidence, making larger responsibilities manageable. Over time, this self-trust becomes a stabilizing force that supports growth under pressure. Responsibility further involves adaptability. Authority does not mean rigidity. It includes the ability to assess outcomes honestly and make adjustments without defensiveness. The message reframes correction as strength, not weakness. Those who advance financially are willing to refine strategies, seek feedback, and change direction when necessary. Adaptability preserves momentum. The message emphasizes that participation is non-negotiable. Observers remain stagnant while participants create movement. Authority is activated through action. Planning without execution produces no results. Taking responsibility transforms ideas into outcomes. Each step taken reinforces the belief that progress is possible and sustainable. Finally, the speech reinforces that financial advancement is a reflection of internal leadership. Leading oneself with discipline, clarity, and courage sets the foundation for managing greater resources. Authority exercised consistently builds capacity, resilience, and confidence, positioning individuals to move forward with intention rather than hesitation and to shape their future through deliberate action and unwavering ownership